I'm Ivan Oransky. I'm the Vice President and Global Editorial Director here at MedPage Today in New York. Over the next several months, I'll be visiting with top executives at a number of large pharmaceutical firms. I want to find out what their priorities are. I want to hear about what's in their pipeline. I want to hear about what their challenges and potential problems are and what's on the horizon. Last month, I went to Hanover, New Jersey, headquarters of Novartis in the U.S., to speak to Christie, who's the U.S. country head and the president of Novartis Pharmaceutical Corporation. Novartis is a very large pharmaceutical company. By revenue, they're number 5 here in the U.S. They've got a lot in their pipeline. They've got a lot on the market. Also, we talk about Entresto, of course, a new drug that a lot of cardiologists are very excited about. And what Novartis is doing with that is quite unusual in terms of their pricing and in terms of their strategy to market. Talked about a number of different issues with Christie, and I hope you'll join me for 3 parts of this interview. In this first segment, Christie and I discuss how she became interested in pharmaceuticals and how she joined the industry a number of years ago. That story, as it does for many of us in healthcare, involves a personal touch, if you will, a family story, family challenges, and even family tragedy. So join us as we talk about these issues, as we talk about what it means for Novartis, and in fact what it means for Christie and her family farm. Thanks very much for being here, Christie. I was wondering if for our audience you could talk a little bit about how you came to work in pharmaceuticals to begin with, how you came to work here at Novartis, your own story, and how that plays into what you do every day.
Oh, sure. So interestingly, my selection of a career happened very early in life. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I, between my junior and senior year, decided what I wanted to do. I had a chemistry teacher who talked to me about medicines, and I loved science. I also am big on humanitarian, helping people, and my father was in business. And it was the one area when I looked at the pharmaceutical industry that really put it all together. The other thing from a personal standpoint is lots of illnesses in my family, and unfortunately some early deaths that really impacted also my future career. So my grandmother had heart failure. I watched her, unfortunately, when she was diagnosed, sit in her recliner for the last 10 years of her life. We went from having lots of cousins and aunts and uncles and family together, shucking corn in Iowa, freezing corn, picking tomatoes, canning tomatoes, to once she was in a recliner and inactive, not only was she inactive, but those things ceased. And the impact of the family was big. Fast forward, my mother at 49 had breast cancer. And at the time she died of breast cancer, which was shortly after that, the aromatase inhibitors were approved. And it wasn't until I came to Novartis Oncology that I realized, had my mother gotten into the clinical trials for aromatase inhibitors, she would have lived another 18 months to 5 years. And so it really also taught me about the medicine and about how to ensure that you're reaching out and finding answers and solutions beyond just the individual physician that you're seeing. Fast forward again to my sister, who's 49 years old. At 49, I should say, 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. By the time they diagnosed it, she was stage 3, and there's no stage 4. And we thought we were going to lose her. She received therapy, Velcade, then she went on bone marrow transplant, Revlimid maintenance, and we got another year. She relapsed, and she went on the combination of Pomalyst, Kyprolis. We got an additional 3 months. And then recently she's been put on the new J&J antibody. And so I look back and I think we've gotten 2 years. She's been a grandmother and an aunt to my son. I have pictures of holidays, we saw her 12 months in a row. And all of those moments that we had together that I may not have had, that I didn't have with my mother, for example. And I see what we do for a living in the pharmaceutical industry as not just medicines, but how do we actually help people have longer, healthier lives so that they have more moments with their families that they'll remember forever. So when I was asked to join Novartis Oncology, I really thought, geez, I don't know if I want to work in the chemotherapy agents, watching how my mother died, But then seeing what happened with Gleevec, hearing the story of Gleevec, seeing what's happened with my sister, it was a great choice for me. So 5.5 years ago, I ran the Novartis North America oncology business. And about 1.5 years ago, I took over the president's role in the US. Now, my role today is actually twofold. One is I run the General Medicine's Pharma business, which includes cardiovascular, multiple sclerosis, respiratory, and dermatology and immunology. The second part of my job is oversight of all the divisions in the US. We have about 23,500 people that work for Novartis in the US, and we have Alcon, Sandoz, Oncology, and the General Medicine's business located here, as well as multiple research sites across the country.
So obviously this is, for you, it is personal. I mean, there's an element to your story, as I hear from others who I talk to in the field, about why they got into it. I feel the need to ask you about your own family. I understand that you actually continue to farm, or so your sisters
Yes.
continue to farm. I want to get that right, but
yes, we all do actually. So from my story, my parents unfortunately died young, mom with breast cancer, and my dad died of a rare disease, rare infection. And so it was my sisters and I, none of us living in Iowa, that inherited these farms. In hindsight, it being 2020, it's really kept us close. We have a sisters call every weekend, and part of that call is about discussing what we're doing with the farms and what we need to do. So we have some farms where the local family farmer rents it from us. They plant soybeans or corn. They rotate that yearly. But most of our farms are actually in soil conservation, which actually is quite a bit of work. We have to go back and plant native grasses. We have to go back and burn, or we have to go back and disc, and making sure that we're working with the farmers to keep up with the standards of how nature takes its course more naturally. So my sisters and I actually still continue that. And today I actually live on a farm here in New Jersey with my husband and my 7-year-old son. And we have about 20 acres, sheep, chickens, a pond with lots of fish in it. So I try to continue that upbringing that I had with my son.